The flagship of the Thalrex Dominion hung suspended in the black void above Earth's moon, an imposing structure of dark metals and shifting plasma fields. Its sleek, angular form gleamed with a malevolent presence, reflecting the light of distant stars as it blotted out the moon's ancient craters. The ship was an icon of the Dominion's power, its towering hull layered with hundreds of energy cannons, sleek ion turrets, and a weaponized core capable of rendering a planet into dust. To the eyes of the Thalrex, Earth was just another primitive world ripe for subjugation, another stop on their endless campaign to expand their empire across the stars. Grand Strategist Corval Vex stood at the heart of the war room, his 6 hands clasped behind his back as his 4 eyes focused on the tactical displays. His species, towering and lizard-like with bony exoskeletons that shimmered under the cold light of their ship, had conquered hundreds of worlds. They were a race built on power, not diplomacy, their entire culture forged in the crucible of war. Corval Vex had seen entire civilizations fall to his will, civilizations far older and far more advanced than humanity. But Earth was different. It was a backwater world, raw and untamed, filled with conflict and chaos. Corval Vex had studied Earth for years, watching from the shadows as humanity tore itself apart. But there was a part of him that was intrigued. He could see the potential, the violence, the desperation, the willingness to adapt. And so, the Dominion had decided to test humanity, to provoke a reaction. They had waited for the right moment, and now they would strike. Not with their full might. No, they would test Earth first, seeing how the humans would respond when their might was flexed before them. He turned toward his tactical officer, a smaller, more insectoid creature who spoke in rapid clicks. "The broadcast is ready, sir. We will show them the might of the Thalrex Dominion." Corval Vex nodded, his voice deep and resonant as he issued the command. "Initiate. Make sure every screen, every relay, every device on that planet is receiving this. Let them feel the weight of our presence." His words were ice cold, and there was a satisfaction in his tone, a sense of impending victory. Moments later, across the world, the skies above Earth began to darken. The usual serenity of the atmosphere was shattered by strange, swirling clouds of iridescent energy, patterns that no human had ever seen. In every city, from the towering spires of New York to the sprawling megacities of Shanghai, people stopped in their tracks. The clouds shifted, revealing a deep crimson sigil, an ancient, terrifying symbol that no one recognized but everyone feared. The Dominion's emblem, a harbinger of doom. And then, the message came. It blared across every screen, every news channel, every digital device, from the smallest handheld communicator to the largest video billboards. The Thalrex Dominion's insignia filled the world's screens, a grotesque swirl of crimson stars and spiked black tendrils. Corval Vex's face appeared, his cold, reptilian gaze staring down from every corner of the planet. His voice, amplified by the Dominion's broadcast technology, resonated with a terrifying clarity. "Humans of Earth," he began, the tone of his voice deliberate, each word a calculated strike. "Your planet has been observed. We have watched as you have bled your world dry with your wars, your conflicts, your petty struggles for dominance. You, who claim to be a beacon of life and hope in the stars, have instead turned your home into a furnace of chaos. You have failed to understand that power is not in your machines, your weapons, or your numbers. Power is in domination, in control. And now, we will teach you what it means to face a real force." He paused, his 4 eyes scanning the planet below with disdain. "We gave you a chance to evolve in peace, to rise above your petty squabbles and make something of your existence. But you chose war, you chose violence, and now the lesson begins." Across the world, the effect was instantaneous. Every screen crackled with static, the air felt thick with tension, and people began to panic. Governments scrambled to formulate a response, military commanders rushed to their stations, and the world's communication systems were flooded with messages from every corner of the globe. The fear was palpable. The Thalrex had arrived, and they had made their intentions clear. But one voice rose above the din, a voice not of panic, but of calm determination. From the United States, from the heart of Earth's unified defense accord, Admiral Marin Reyes stepped forward. She was a woman forged by decades of conflict, a leader who had seen humanity through its darkest hours and its brightest triumphs. With her steely gray eyes and hair that had once been dark, but now carried the wisdom of 1,000 battles, she was an embodiment of human resilience. As the voice of humanity's last line of defense, Admiral Reyes's face appeared on every screen, her image cutting through the fear like a knife through soft flesh. To those watching, she said, her voice carrying the weight of her years of service, "You wanted a show of power, but Earth doesn't do theater. We don't submit. We don't back down. We write history with fire and steel." Her words were like a spark in dry tinder. They ignited a fire within every human watching. They were not afraid. Not anymore. Reyes's gaze never wavered as she gave the order. "Initiate the countermeasures," she said, her tone hard and final. Beneath the surface of Earth, beneath the frozen ice of the Arctic, and the barren landscapes of the Moon, humanity's secret weapons were ready. Project Umbra, Earth's final answer to any threat, the culmination of decades of research and engineering, was about to make its presence known. In the dark, hidden chambers of the Earth Defense Command, the project's massive reactors came online, humming with raw energy. High-tech weapons once thought impossible by the most advanced human minds now rose from their underground silos. The unseen forces of Earth had awakened, and Korvalvex's smile began to falter. He had underestimated them. But as his warship loomed over the planet, he still believed the lesson would be his to teach. He could not have known the weight of the reckoning humanity was about to deliver. Korvalvex paced the war room, his mind working furiously as the first signs of the humans' counter-response began to materialize. Earth was a backwater planet, their technological advances laughable in comparison to the might of the Thalrex Dominion. And yet, as he had watched from the cold expanse of space, there had been whispers of a secret project, one humanity had kept hidden from the prying eyes of the galaxy. What he had not anticipated, however, was the sheer scale of their readiness. The hum of distant energy systems vibrated through the command deck, amplifying the tension that hung thick in the air. Outside the massive viewscreen, Earth spun beneath them, its atmosphere glowing with the final embers of the Dominion's broadcast. He'd been certain humanity would cower. Instead, they had responded with calculated defiance. And now, something was different. He could feel it. "Is everything in place?" Korvalvex demanded, his voice colder than the void around them. His second-in-command, a 6-armed officer with a sleek, reflective carapace, answered, with a series of clicking sounds. "Yes, Commander. All systems are ready. But there's a shift in the gravitational field. We've detected unusual seismic activity from the planet's poles." Korvalvex turned to face the officer, his 6 eyes narrowing in suspicion. "Explain." The officer pressed a series of keys, pulling up a series of complex readouts. A series of large, glowing structures on Earth, deep within the frozen continents of Antarctica, were emitting an unexpected and steady pulse. The data was unlike anything they had seen before, an anomaly so powerful it could only be generated by technologies they hadn't believed humanity capable of. "The pulses are increasing," the officer said, uncertainty creeping into his voice. It's like they're waking something up. Something massive." Korvalvex's irritation flared. "They couldn't have," he muttered. His gaze shifted back to the display of Earth, his fingers tightening around the command console. A cold, unsettling realization dawned upon him. Whatever humanity had hidden beneath their primitive surface was more than just an answer to their invasion. It was a challenge. A provocation. The very thing he had sought to initiate was now being turned against him. He turned sharply, his voice full of dark amusement. "If they want to make things interesting, we shall oblige." On the surface of Earth, the world had gone silent. Across every continent, every city, there was a collective pause, an eerie stillness that felt as though the Earth itself was holding its breath. Even the skies had quieted. The usual hum of human technology stilled for a brief, tense moment. And then, it began. Out in space, the first human fleet ship broke through the ionosphere, streaking across the sky like a comet in the night. The SS Valiant was an ancient vessel by human standards, decommissioned and left to gather dust in the back corners of the Earth Defense Fleet. It was slow, outdated, and its hull was patched together from the remains of countless other ships. But it was not the ship's age that mattered, it was the power it carried. The Valiant was the first of many ships that had been hidden from the Dominion's sensors, a tactical distraction designed to divert attention. But beneath it, in the shadows of the planet's forgotten corners, humanity's true weapon was coming to life. Deep beneath the surface of Antarctica, where the frozen landscape hid humanity's deepest secrets, enormous energy reactors powered up with a low, bone-rattling hum. The ground trembled as massive underground structures, long abandoned by any other species, came online. These were the key to Earth's last line of defense, the Umbra Project. For centuries, Earth's best engineers, physicists, and military minds had worked in secret, guided by the impossible ambition to create a weapon capable of destroying entire fleets of superior alien vessels. The Umbra Project had been designed not to fight a single battle, but to destroy entire armadas. Hidden beneath miles of ice, these weapons had been protected by layers of defensive systems so advanced that even the Thalrex Dominion could not detect them until it was too late. Now, that time had come. The Umbra core, once dormant, roared to life. Massive magnetic accelerators surged with energy, creating a field so powerful that it bent the very fabric of space around them. An array of synchronized pulse cannons aligned beneath the ice, focusing their deadly firepower into a single, devastating beam that could tear through the strongest of ships. As the first of the Valiant's sister ships launched into space, their mission set to draw the attention of the Thalrex forces, the human forces in Antarctica activated the final component of the Umbra Project. A shockwave of energy shot through the atmosphere, fast, precise, and so concentrated that it distorted the air in a shimmering ripple. The energy wave didn't just travel through the surface, it bent through the planet's core, reaching deep into the void of space. The Thalrex ships would never have seen it coming. Corval Vex's expression turned from confident amusement to immediate concern. The readouts from his ship now showed massive energy surges coming from the planet below. Exactly the kind of surge the Thalrex had no preparation for. He felt the sudden shift in the balance of power, his mind racing. Could it be that the humans had truly prepared? From his command deck, the first sign of humanity's response to the Dominion's challenge came into view. A vast fleet, made up of every surviving human warship in Earth's arsenal, sped from their orbiting positions, each ship designed for one singular purpose: to fight. The Valiant led the charge, flanked by the Victory, Protean, and Regent, ancient vessels that had seen countless battles but had been retooled with the latest technology from the Umbra Project. Each ship carried a payload of devastating power, new weapons humanity had designed specifically for this moment. Their targeting systems were enhanced with artificial intelligence and quantum computing, enabling them to strike with surgical precision, a tool humanity had borrowed from their enemies in the past. Corval Vex's mind raced. They have synchronized their fleets, but that's not all. What are they hiding? In response, the Thalrex warship unleashed a volley of missiles, blazing streaks of light shooting toward Earth, their ion-based warheads capable of obliterating entire cities. But the Valiant and the other ships weren't retreating. They weren't cowering. Instead, they began a coordinated counterattack, a fierce storm of light and metal. Each ship launched a barrage of kinetic projectiles and plasma beams, returning fire with more fury than Corval Vex had anticipated. The Dominion had come to Earth to demonstrate its power. Instead, they were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was its unwillingness to surrender. The battle had just begun. The battle had erupted like a supernova, swift, unrelenting, and unlike anything the Thalrex had ever experienced. Corval Vex stood at the forefront of the Dominion's command deck, eyes glued to the screen as humanity's response unfolded in real time. It was clear that the human fleets were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for something more. And the intensity in their resolve was unlike anything the Thalrex had expected. For the first time, Corval Vex began to feel a pulse of doubt. a flicker of uncertainty that rippled through the ranks of the mighty Dominion. But it was fleeting. His military genius would not allow such feelings to take root. He focused on the tactical display, where the human ships appeared in waves, each one launching volleys of energy projectiles and missile barrages, their weapons faster and more precise than he had anticipated. The Valiant led the charge, its shields flaring in a brilliant light as the first wave of Thalrex missiles struck. Yet it held firm, absorbing the impact as though the ship was invincible, its hull designed to withstand the worst the galaxy could throw at it. Humanity's engineers, it seemed, had outdone themselves. A tactical assessment of the Thalrex fleet showed that it was already starting to split into smaller formations. The Thalrex weren't used to fighting enemies who could think like this. Their strategies, honed over centuries of galactic dominance, relied on overwhelming force, their ships designed to decimate, to crush all who dared stand against them. But these human ships were different. They weren't just fighting, they were adapting, evolving mid-battle. Corval Vex clenched his mandibles in frustration, his mind churning through calculations and strategies. The Thalrex warships were formidable, but their strength was now in question. "Initiate countermeasures," he barked. His officers scrambled to follow his orders, but their eyes betrayed their growing concern. The readings were unprecedented. The humans were not just surviving, they were winning. Meanwhile, in the cold vacuum of space, the human fleet was pushing forward, their weapons now fully activated. The Regent, a vessel known for its high-speed maneuvers and specialized plasma cannons, danced through the battlefield with the grace of a predator. Its crew was well-trained, each move synchronized to perfection, their battle drills hardwired into their instincts. The Victory was taking a more defensive role, its thick armor and energy shields absorbing and deflecting the constant barrage of fire from the Thalrex fleet. The Dominion's plasma cannons were devastating, but the human ship's advanced deflection systems, once thought impossible to the Thalrex, were holding strong. The shields flickered but held firm, their resilience a testament to the advancements humanity had secretly developed. On the ground, in the command center beneath the frozen ice of Antarctica, humanity's engineers and military leaders watched the chaos unfold. They could see the battle through the eyes of their fleet, the enormous pulsating energy shields and streaks of light cutting through the darkness of space. Each ship was connected to a central AI system that analyzed enemy movements and calculated countermeasures in fractions of a second. The AI's processing power was so advanced that it could predict enemy strategies with chilling precision, guiding the human fleet's every move. Dr. Abigail Winters, the lead scientist behind the Umbra project, stood with her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the holographic display. Her mind was a flurry of calculations as she observed the way the Dominion ships moved, the subtle patterns emerging from the chaos of battle. It was clear. Corval Vex and the Thalrex Dominion were no longer the unstoppable force they had believed themselves to be. "AI systems, engage evasive maneuvers," Dr. Winters murmured, more to herself than anyone else. The room fell into a tense silence as the artificial intelligence analyzed the incoming trajectories and calculated a new path for the ships. It was as if the fleet had become a living organism, responding in perfect harmony to the flow of the battle. The next move was a bold one. The Victory, with its reinforced hull and powerful pulse lasers, surged forward, breaking the lines of the Thalrex fleet. In that instant, the Valiant and the Protean followed suit, creating a breach that sent ripples through the Dominion's formations. The attack was swift and unrelenting, every ship firing in perfect synchronization. In the chaos, the Thalrex had no time to react, their communications flooded with errors and miscalculations. Then, the unimaginable happened. In the far reaches of space, the Umbra core activated for the first time. The previously hidden weapon, buried beneath the ice, now revealed its true power. The energy pulse shot upward from Earth, cutting through the upper atmosphere and into the stars. It was not a single beam of light, but a wide, expanding field of concentrated energy that reached out, consuming everything in its path. Corval Vex watched in horror as the pulse, with a terrifying hum, connected with the Thalrex fleet. The results were immediate. The first ship to encounter the pulse was the Dreadstrike, a massive Dominion flagship. Its shields, already weakened from previous skirmishes, flared once and then collapsed. The ship's systems fried in an instant, its energy grid overloaded by the sheer intensity of the pulse. The ship exploded with a force that illuminated the darkness of space, a burst of light so bright it momentarily blotted out the stars. As the blast wave surged through the battlefield, the Thalrex fleet was forced to scatter. The human ships, now emboldened by their success, pressed their advantage, launching a full-scale assault on the fractured Dominion forces. Missiles streaked across the sky, and plasma beams collided with enemy hulls, causing ships to twist and explode into glittering clouds of debris. Corval Vex's grip tightened around the console, his 6 eyes scanning the chaos before him. His fleet was crumbling, overwhelmed by humanity's resilience and technological prowess. He had underestimated them. The humans had not just fought back, they had orchestrated a calculated retaliation, one that was as precise as it was deadly. And now, the Thalrex Dominion was on the defensive. For the first time since their arrival, the Thalrex commander felt something that he had never thought possible: fear. The humans were no longer the underdogs in this battle. They were proving themselves to be a force of nature, unpredictable, relentless, and terrifying in their ingenuity. The lessons of overconfidence were being delivered with the full fury of Earth's last line of defense. The void was no longer silent. What once was a cold, calculating field of Thalrex domination had transformed into a canvas of explosive defiance. Ships burned across the stars like falling meteors, and amid this celestial inferno, humanity carved its vengeance into the bones of a once untouchable empire. But this was not mere retaliation. It was revelation. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy witnessed the resurgence of a species long underestimated, long dismissed as primitive, and they were rewriting the rules. Aboard the Valiant, Captain Elias Drake stood in the heart of the command bridge, a steady anchor amid the storm. His voice was calm, issuing commands with the poise of someone who had spent a lifetime preparing for this exact moment. The bridge was alive with activity, tactical readouts, heat maps of enemy positions, damage reports, and AI combat simulations flowed like digital rivers across translucent screens. But what truly made the Valiant a living juggernaut wasn't its captain or its crew. It was the intelligence behind it. Athena, the ship's onboard quantum AI, was the first of her kind. A sentient war strategist designed not merely to follow logic, but to understand war on an emotional, psychological level. She did not simply calculate trajectories. She anticipated fear, hesitation, arrogance. Her neural matrix was modeled on the minds of humanity's greatest generals and philosophers, fused with petabytes of alien tactical data harvested over decades. And right now, she was dancing circles around the Thalrex. Redirect plasma cannons to grid sector Delta 7. Anticipate Thalrex formation shift in 3.6 seconds. Predictive targeting engaged, she intoned with eerie serenity. Within moments, twin pulses of cobalt blue plasma carved through the dark, slamming into a Thalrex cruiser just as it attempted to flank. It didn't explode immediately. It twisted, spiraled, and then crumpled into itself, consumed by the Valiant's fury. Across the fleet, similar stories were unfolding. Human warships moved like predators with purpose, silent, strategic, and viciously coordinated. The Protean had become a phantom, its stealth capabilities so advanced that Thalrex sensors could barely register it before it struck. Its crew, a mix of veterans and cybernetic tacticians, worked in seamless unity with its onboard AI, Mimir, who specialized in deception and misdirection. While one hull fainted, another flanked. The battlefield was no longer theirs to endure. It was theirs to command. Back on Earth, the public was only beginning to grasp the scale of the engagement. Emergency news broadcasts flickered across continents, showing glimpses of the unfolding battle in space. Social feeds were inundated with images of the Valiant releasing a solar flare cannon, of alien ships disintegrating in orbits, of Earth's skies rippling as the Umbra Pulse had first fired. The disbelief that had once defined humanity's early contact with extraterrestrial life was now replaced by something more primal: pride. But the fight was far from over. On the edge of the solar system, Corval Vex was regrouping. His surviving ships, though damaged and disoriented, were not defeated. Not yet. He had called in reinforcements from the Scorch Path, summoning deep space Dominion dreadnoughts armed with planet crackers. Weapons designed not for war, but for erasure. These were ships that had never failed, responsible for the vaporization of the Volari homeworld and the sterilization of over 30 minor species. To him, Earth was no different, just another target, another forgotten world to be reduced to ash. Yet this was the mistake that would define him. What Corval Vex failed to comprehend, what all Thalrex commanders failed to internalize, was that humanity did not fear death the way others did. They had lived in the shadow of their own extinction for centuries. Nuclear war, climate collapse, plagues, political upheaval, AI singularities. Their history was a litany of near ends, and every time they endured, they evolved. They emerged more dangerous than before. As the Dominion fleet emerged from the void like reapers in a storm, they were greeted not by desperation, but by orchestration. Humanity had known this moment would come. The Umbra Project hadn't just built weapons. They had mapped the tactics, the reinforcements, even the arrival times of Dominion counterattacks. The data had been modeled in predictive clusters, fed into time-shifted simulations running on chrono-quantum cores. In essence, humanity had already fought this war, many times, and they had won. The moment the dreadnoughts powered their primary weapons, Earth's defenses responded not with panic, but with perfection. Orbital kinetic batteries, invisible to most sensors, activated above the moons of Saturn and Mars. These were relics of the Deep Shield Initiative, weapons humanity had placed quietly throughout the solar system in preparation for the worst. They fired with a silence more terrifying than sound, launching hyper-dense tungsten rods that accelerated to near-relativistic speeds. When they struck, they didn't explode. They punched through hulls like ghosts, creating pinpoint holes that led to catastrophic decompressions. No shields, no matter how advanced, could compensate for the sheer kinetic fury of physics wielded as a blade. One by one, the dreadnoughts fell. Inside the Dominion command ship, Corval Vex watched in stunned silence as ships he had once believed divine were reduced to shrapnel and silence. His eyes, so used to reading victories, now struggled to interpret this new data. A battlefield where the Thalrex were the prey. And for the first time in the history of the Dominion, the words he muttered were not commands but a whisper. Impossible, but it wasn't. It was human. The final act was unfolding, not in the silence of space, but in the roar of defiance. As the Dominion fleet collapsed, one by one, in the face of humanity's unexpected brilliance, the Thalrex command structure began to splinter. Corval Vex, the once unquestioned conqueror, now found himself isolated. His ships, scattered and desperate, no longer communicated in the coordinated fashion of a dominant empire. Signals between ships broke down as panic took root, their once fearsome unity shattered by the overwhelming precision of human warfare. Corval Vex's flagship, the Stellar Warden, now drifted alone among the debris field of his former fleet, surrounded by the shattered remnants of his ambition. The once proud hull, which had commanded respect across countless worlds, now appeared as little more than a wounded beast, its metallic skin dented, scorched, and scarred by the relentless onslaught of humanity's engineered fury. The atmosphere inside the bridge was oppressive, thick with the stench of smoke and ionized air, as crew members scrambled to try and regain control over a vessel that was no longer fit for battle. Corval Vex stared out into the void through the cracked viewports, his mind reeling. He had believed in his superiority. He had believed that humanity was nothing more than an obstacle, a blip in the grand timeline of the universe. Yet now, as he looked at the destruction wrought by human hands, he saw that he was the one who had been outclassed. "Captain, all communications are offline. The fleet has dispersed," one of his remaining officers reported, their voice trembling. Corval Vex's eyes were cold, resolute, but inside, he was slowly crumbling. His pride, his empire, his place in the stars, all were being swallowed by the relentless march of time and human resilience. "I know," he replied quietly, though his voice betrayed a hint of vulnerability. "Prepare for the final assault." Even in his moment of defeat, the Thalrex general clung to one hope. His final weapon, the Oblivion Star. A massive experimental battleship designed to harness the energy of a collapsing star itself. A weapon of apocalyptic power that, in theory, could reduce entire planets to nothing more than cosmic dust. It had never been used, its potential seen as a last resort. Corval Vex, in his desperation, now saw it as his only way to maintain some shred of his former power. The Oblivion Star was still in the distance, its massive silhouette drifting in the shadows of Saturn's rings, hidden in the cold embrace of the gas giant. Its activation would take time, but it would be enough. He had to force humanity to realize their place in the galaxy. They had to be taught a lesson they would never forget. But what Corval Vex hadn't accounted for was the unity of humanity, nor their unyielding resolve to protect what was theirs. Back aboard the Valiant, Captain Elias Drake stood before the main tactical screen, now fully aware of the Thalrek's final move. The intelligence gathered from their fleets fragmented. Transmissions had pinpointed the Oblivion Star's location with chilling precision. And unlike the Thalreks, humanity had no intention of retreating. "This ends today," Drake murmured, his voice as cold and unwavering as the space between stars. He turned toward Athena, who was already processing the incoming data with her usual flawless precision. "Can we disable the Oblivion Star before it reaches its full capacity?" he asked. Athena paused for a fraction of a second, her systems calculating the immense gravitational forces the starship would soon unleash. "Negative. The Oblivion Star's core drive is in the final phase of activation. We cannot prevent it from reaching critical mass in time with conventional weapons." Drake felt a pang of frustration, but it was quickly replaced by clarity. Conventional weapons had never been humanity's solution. "What about the Omega Protocol?" he asked, his eyes locked on the holographic display. Athena's processors hummed with the familiar rhythm of ancient plans, countermeasures designed for impossible odds. "Activating the Omega Protocol will require all remaining fleet ships to enter the danger zone. It is a suicidal maneuver, Captain." Drake turned, his gaze hardening. "We've been fighting for survival from day one. We're not going to stop now." The Omega Protocol was a last-ditch measure, an all-or-nothing tactic that required several ships to launch synchronized, high-speed kinetic strikes at the heart of an enemy ship's core. Each ship would be armed with special high-density energy warheads, weaponized asteroids designed to breach even the most fortified hulls. But to succeed, every ship would have to enter the Oblivion Star's radiation zone, where the collapsing star's gravitational pull could tear apart anything within 1,000 kilometers. It was a calculated risk, one that no fleet had ever dared to take. And yet, for humanity, it was the only option left. The Valiant was the first to enter the kill zone, its engines screaming with raw power as it accelerated toward the Oblivion Star. Behind it, the rest of humanity's fleet followed, each ship a symbol of courage, of defiance against the impossible. "Ready the launch sequence," Drake commanded. "We do this together. One final push. We end this now." The battle that followed was no longer one of mere strategy or tactics. It was a fight for existence itself. Humanity's finest hour. Their ships cut through the stars with the speed and precision of a bladed strike. Each ship was a beacon of resistance, each pilot a warrior determined to see the end of the Thalrek's plague. As the ships approached their target, the Oblivion Star began to release waves of deadly radiation, turning the space around it into a furnace of destruction. But the human ships did not falter. They cut through the waves of energy like ships in a storm, relentless in their pursuit. In the final moments, as the human fleet neared the Oblivion Star, Captain Drake's thoughts turned to his crew, the warriors who had stood with him, who had trusted him. And with one final breath, he ordered the launch. The warheads shot forward, spiraling through the void like falling stars. The Thalrek's flagship had no time to react, and then, in a flash of light brighter than 1,000 suns, the Oblivion Star was no more. The shockwaves reverberated across the galaxy, signaling the end of the Thalrex's reign of terror. But more than that, it marked the dawn of a new era, an era where humanity was no longer the underdog, no longer the forgotten species, an era where Earth had taken its place among the stars, not as a footnote in the galaxy's history, but as a force to be reckoned with. As the dust settled, and the last echoes of the battle faded into the void, Captain Elias Drake looked out into the stars, knowing that this was only the beginning. And humanity? Humanity had just begun to rise.